And at the end, it's not the position you played, it's who you are internally. And that's the only way to solve it. If you're a founder, you probably go into so many lifetimes. You will become a serial founder, you will change jobs, you will have so many phases. But if you have your inside strengthened, you will be better suited to be successful in each one of them and to bring a better energy to each one of them. And with your family and friends also provide a better you because you know who you are. What I've learned is that I will always do everything I do with as much passion as I can. But at the end, it's about who you are internally.
Welcome to another episode of Outsider Inc. I'm your host, Ian Hathaway. Today's guest is Jimena Pardo, a founder, operator, and investor helping shape the future of Latin America's tech ecosystem. In 2012, Jimena co-founded Carrot, Mexico's first car-sharing startup, becoming a pioneer in the country's modern tech startup movement and the very first founder backed by AllVP, Mexico's first institutional venture capital fund. Jimena led Carrot through 6 years of growth, navigating infrastructure gaps, cultural and regulatory headwinds, and a rapidly evolving mobility landscape before stepping down and selling the business. After Carrot, she made a major shift, moving to Silicon Valley and joining Facebook, now Meta, where she led product growth for Spanish-speaking Latin America. It was a reset in every sense, operating at global scale, building inside big tech, and launching products across Argentina, Colombia, Mexico, and Peru. In 2022, after 4 years in Silicon Valley, she came back home, rejoining the very firm that had once written hers and their first check. Alongside her longtime mentor, Federico Antoni, she helped lead the rebrand of AllVP into Hive Ventures, where she is now co-founder and managing partner of the early-stage venture fund focused on building global companies from Latin America with a sharp thesis around AI and local data. Jimena is one of the few people in Latin American tech who's built from every seat: founder, big tech operator, angel investor, and now venture capitalist. I'm excited to talk with her about her journey, the evolution of Latin America's startup landscape, and why she looks for founders ready to scale globally from day one. Jimena, mi amiga, welcome to Outsider Inc.
Hola, Ian. I'm so happy to be here. It's an honor that you invited me.
It's so great to see you, Jimena. Thank you so much for being here. You have such a great story. As I said at the outset, you've one of these few people who's really touched all those areas of being a founder and operator and an investor in the region. I want to dive into your journey in a moment. But first, I was hoping we could begin by level setting a little bit on tech in Latin America generally and in Mexico specifically. Aside from Linda Rotenberg, who leads Endeavor, as you know, most of our guests so far have generally been focused on the United States. You are our first guest from Latin America, and many of our listeners may be unfamiliar with the region. So I just want to spend a little time digging in there. As you know, I'm quite bullish on investing in startups in the region, but I'd love to have you share your view. Why are Mexico and Latin America great opportunities for tech entrepreneurship and investing right now?
Thank you, Ian. You've been very bullish and you have been one of those investors with a lot of conviction in Latin America. And that's amazing. That speaks highly of you. The Latin American tech ecosystem, it's a young ecosystem. It began probably 10 to 15 years ago. And back then, the region did not have the infrastructure, nor the communities, nor the talent and the dream to have this tech ecosystem. So we were a few that started some startups. We saw some needs. We had some international references. So we brought them to Latin America. And it's been great to see this decade because today it's a Latin America that has a lot of needs. So if you go into industries like fintech, if you go to health tech, if you go to education, there's so many green land for innovation. Then if you go to the other way, infrastructure is already here. Everybody in Latin America now has a mobile phone and everybody WhatsApps and everybody has access to the internet. So there's the need, there's the infra, and then now after these 10 to 15 years, we have finally the talent So we have engineers that have been coding since forever and have this great expertise. We have already success cases of big companies in Latin America, such as Corner Shop, which is a high ventures company, or Bitsos, or Kabax, or Rapis, or Nubanks. And these big companies, what they have done is that they have created this talent that is already ready to build in tech. So if you see it from far away, we have the needs, we have the infrastructure, we have the talent. Beyond that, it's a great market. It's a huge market. It's a 500 million market with people that are already digitalized. And then there's another additional layer that it's AI. With AI, Latin Americans are able to build services and reach to every user and finally realize the overpromises that we have seen in the past. We can break every barrier that users used to have. It's a low-hanging fruit to get alpha. That's how we're seeing it.
You touched on a number of points that I agree with. You mentioned I'm high conviction on the region. We really didn't set out to do that. We were pulled into the region. The problems are big. There's so many challenges to solve. You mentioned the talent. The talent is staying home. The talent is going into tech instead of into consulting and banking. You mentioned these high-profile success stories that are creating wealth, that are teaching people how to build tech companies. On the challenges side, I'd like to talk a little bit about what still needs to evolve is capital. One of the things that's clear to me is that there's a major capital deficit pretty much at all stages of the venture journey. I could argue that those deficiencies are the strongest in any one of the phases, whether we're talking about pre-seed and seed, early stage, growth stage. There's all a challenge. Of course, Latin America had its moment in the late 2010s, 2020, 21. Name brand firms from the United States came pouring in, driving up valuations, creating this frenzy. And it's just as fast as they came, they left. And so I'm just kind of curious, after going through this 15 years of progress, very nonlinear, some high highs, some low lows, how do you feel like the capital landscape is evolving? And what is the sustainable version of Latin American tech moving forward?
This is such a good question and such a big pain point for Latin America. I think one of the biggest problems is that Latin Americans don't have this pre-seed or this angel investing opportunity. And this is what I really like on what you're doing, Ian, because you actually help us come from 0 to 1. And you give so many people the opportunity to actually build something and start and just execute. So one is those angel investing that 10 years ago, it was 0. After 2021, 2022, now we're finally seeing the successful founders start this ecosystem in paying it forward and start to playing these small checks to other founders, usually people that worked in their own companies. And then they have seen how they grew and they're ready to invest in them. So it's slowly growing, but growing. Then it comes the pre-seed, Series A, let's say early stage institutional VC. The big problem here is that it depends on the region, but for example, in Mexico, the pension funds have been active in venture capital, but they haven't been long enough to see the returns. So somehow they're a little bit skeptic too. And this is our job to demonstrate them how there's this alpha and this humongous multiple marketing here. But it's been growing and they have already made this bet. And then comes the growth stage that, as you mentioned, there was so many capital being deployed in markets where we had 0 interest rates and there was a lot of floating capital. The only thing that I will perhaps would do some pushback is that as they came, they left. Because many of them, they did that. They were opportunistic funds that came, deployed money, made a few bets. Of course, it went a little bit wrong. Valuations were higher. There was not a lot of discipline, as in everywhere in the world, not only Latin America. And they pulled back. But some of them did stay. So, for example, when I was an entrepreneur, it was unthinkable to get a global fund to see you and invest in you and participate with you. And today, most of the companies in high ventures, we're co-investors with the top funds from Silicon Valley and practically globally. And our founders and even ourselves, we share the boards with these people. And they stayed and they still give advice to their founders and they still help them fundraise and they still help them think globally. So the good ones, they stayed. Now, and this probably from these past 6 months, I am starting to see them very active in the region again. One thing that is missing are the exits. We have a few exits, but those few exits, your audience know about Nubank, they know about Mercado Libre. We're missing more of them more often. So this is a patience game. And I do believe that the sophistication of the talent and the sophistication of the ecosystem will bring them.
I agree. The good global investors are coming back. It's exciting. I want to continue that conversation in a minute, really about Latin America as a stage for global tech, not just regional. But before we do that, I want to rewind back to the beginning. You were born and raised in Mexico City in a household where curiosity was encouraged, a mindset that shaped you from a young age. Your grandfather, Rafael, founded one of the largest engineering firms in Mexico. He became a significant influence and role model for you. Was that where your entrepreneurial spark first came from, or was it something else?
Wow, Ian, you really did your research. I was very blessed to have that role model, my grandfather. And one amazing thing he also did is that he always treated me as if I was his colleague. I'm also an engineer. Instead of being a woman or not taking me in account, that always excited me. Yeah, definitely that brought the entrepreneurial spark with me. In Mexico and in Latin America, when you were in college, you were taught that you had to come into a big corporate, probably an American company, spend 50 years, and then you'll be perfectly suited for the rest of your life. And that was the path that I was taking. I had the opportunity to start my career very early in tech at Hewlett Packard, as many of the tech founders that I admire. But I always knew that I wanted to do something bigger than just that corporate ladder. I always also thought that I had to have all the credentials in order to do it. So I was waiting to go to my MBAs. And actually, in a Sunday brunch, I met Federico, and he was just launching the firm in Mexico. This was back in 2012. And he was the one who convinced me to become an entrepreneur. He actually gave me his first check, even though he didn't have like an LP commitment yet. So it truly was amazing. I also met Diego, my co-founder in Carrot, that I know you know well. And I had such a good chemistry with Diego too. So we were these really two naive young Mexicans trying to copycat Zipcar to Mexico. It's very funny today because we leased the first 3 cars to set them on the streets. And of course, the technology would never work because the mobile infrastructure in Mexico was not ready. So we had to do a lot of things manually and by phone. So we were work all day as any other founder. And during the nights, we will print all the contracts in order to send them the next Monday because the Mexican government back then wouldn't allow like digital signing. So it had to be physical. So I remember these first 2 months being in this rush, like no sleeping. It was not glamorous. At the end, Carrot was amazing. It was a roller coaster ride, 6 years, ups and downs as every founder journey. And we truly saw the ecosystem grow in Mexico. And that was beautiful. And I think for me and Diego, it was life changing because it gave us a lot of exposure and a lot of experience. At the end, what happened to Carrot is what happened to every car sharing company around the world. Ride hailing apps came and they provided a better service. So we all downsized. And Nor Diego and I had the dream to have a small car rental in Mexico City. So we part ways. But it was just an amazing experience. And I remember the early days of the ecosystem, Endeavor coming into Mexico. Endeavor has been a complete catalyst in the ecosystem. People like you coming here and also trying to build this community and trying to bring all the knowledge from other communities and teaching us the hacks on how to do it. It's been fun to see how each element has played its role. There's still a lot of things missing, but it paved the ground for the first big tech companies from Mexico that now are moving the way to the next outliers for the next generations.
I'd like to unpack a little bit. There are so many valuable lessons learned in there. From the beginning, you said you were someone who believed in credentialing, but you dove headfirst into this business with two people you didn't really know that well, and the opposite of credentialing. So what made you want to do it? Do you remember that decision of, why don't I just go ahead and make this completely left turn and jump headfirst into building a tech startup in a domain where nothing exists?
Everything was going well in HP at the end, but I knew I wanted to go and do my master's, my MBA. I was about to go to NYU, and I also got accepted in LSE in London. And so I was trying to decide that. And that's when Federico told me, like, wait, go launch Carrot. And if it doesn't work out, just ask for a referral. But I remember having this conversation with my father, and he still disagreed. He's like, I can't believe you never went and do your MBA. And I'm like, Dad, I promise you, I did the right decision. And he's like, well, I'm still not sure.
Yeah, much better than an MBA, I would imagine. But yeah.
Definitely. The exposure and the way that Carrot accelerated my life and my drive and my purpose, I mean, it's incredible. Once you are a founder and you feel the thrill of that founder, it's a little bit masochistic. When I joined Meta, I always called Meta my entrepreneurial rehab. After Carrot, I was completely burned out physically, emotionally, economically. And I was lucky enough to get into Meta, in this amazing company with amazing and talented people. And they treat you so well, and they will pamper me, and they will fly me first class, etc. But then once you recover your energy, you are masochistic and you want to be in the game again. And I do believe that's one of the founders' characteristics, right? The ability to overcome this challenge. And you never know it's possible unless you get hurt a lot of times.
Well, so the initial vision was car sharing in Mexico, but there were unique challenges, things that founders and consumers in the US may have taken for granted 10 years ago. Unreliable telecommunications networks, maybe banking practices that weren't as accustomed to dealing with these kinds of companies, insurance challenges, regulation. Just talk a little bit about some of those challenges being thrust into these things, broke you mentally, energetically, spiritually, maybe financially, whatever. Just kind of walk us through that whole journey.
So you already know about the network conditions. I mean, the SMS will never arrive to the car. And then digital payments were not quite adopted in Mexico yet. We will have to connect directly to the bank and charge in the credit card. And we would have so many complaints as a car rental that the bank will unplug us anytime. And of course, we represented the bank basically zero. So there was nobody who would actually take a phone call in order to help us figure it out, what was going on. And let me tell you how we have overcome it. Regulation was huge. Pretty quickly, we knew that this was a service for the city. So we tried to get the government to like us. And it was very, very funny because Diego and I will dress up. He would wear a tie. And we would stalk basically the mayor from Mexico City. In every event, we will see the news and, oh, he's going to be in the presentation of the opening of this thing. So we will show up with an iPad and just trying to get his attention. And one day, the mayor looked at Diego, looked at the iPad, and he was like, wait, I was with the mayor of Paris a month ago, and they told me they were doing car sharing such as this one. So he just turned over somebody and said, get me a meeting with these two little kids. And that helped us not only in the communications, but it also helped us with the regulation, just trying to get the cars on the street. And then there were other complications, insurance. Once we opened the peer-to-peer program, that was a messy thing, and there was no insurance that would wanted to take that risk. So Diego, he had to come into an auto insurance scheme where we will actually hold some money to do our own insurance thing if something happened to the car. So there were so many things that were against us, but at the end, every day we will solve another one. We even had 100 cars in the street, and we were growing and we were showing, and we were able to fundraise, and we were the pioneers of the next generation of the tech companies in Mexico. And for me, that's the greatest outcome that was able to come from Carrot. Today, a founder in Mexico City, now they have 200 ways in order to get digital payments. They have the global payments, they have the local payments, they have the subscription payments. Today, the government is willing to go to every founder and tell them, yeah, how can you help me win? And now I believe every corporate now sees this innovation arm as a must, and founders don't have to fight in order to come in again.
You definitely made it easier for others charting that path. Timing is everything. I'm sure it would have been much easier starting that company today. So just to kind of put a pin in the carrot journey for you, in the end, as you hinted, you made this difficult decision to step down, to sell the company. Maybe it was really made for you, but this was so much of your livelihood and your identity. In prior episodes, we've had guests, Jewel Burke-Solomon, Sean O'Sullivan, talking about this challenge of, on the one hand, needing to be all in on this idea, this all-consuming, building this company, doing this really hard thing. But on the other hand, being a human and being distinct from that. And these things can get intertwined. That can create problems of mental health, happiness, wellness. What was that like for you? And what were kind of the challenges as you let go of that period of your life of maybe not fulfilling the vision that you wanted to achieve in the beginning?
Yeah, that is so right. And I think it happens so many times to entrepreneurs. And when you go all in into a project, and on Sundays when you're with your family, you keep talking about it, and they see you step up from dinner to take a call and make another call, and on holidays to plug in, etc. And you get obsessed in what you're building. And truly, I think that's the way a founder should be. But it comes with a big, big price. I started to be Pyme from Carrot. People call me Pyme. It's my nickname because my sister wouldn't say Jime and would say Pyme when I was younger. So I was Pyme from Carrot. So you start to blend your personality to what you do. And suddenly I was the mobility expert and the female founder image, and so much exposure. And when I took the decision to leave Carrot, I mean, it was very painful to leave your work behind, but I did have this identity problem as, well, if I'm not Pyme from Carrot, who am I now? And that's when I joined Meta. And I truly loved my time at Meta, but somehow I always thought that I was in a shadow because I was another product manager as another 10,000 product managers. You try to compensate with other things, and yeah, I'll be the product manager from Latin America, etc. And at the end, it's not the position you played, it's who you are internally. And that's the only way to solve it. If you're a founder, you probably go into so many lifetimes. You will become a serial founder, you'll change jobs, you will have so many phases. But if you have your inside strengthened, you will be better suited to be successful in each one of them and to bring a better energy to each one of them. And with your family and friends also provide a better you because you know who you are. What I've learned is that I will always do everything I do with as much passion as I can. But at the end, it's about who you are internally.
That's beautifully said. Easier said than done. After being Pyme from Carrot, you became Pyme from Silicon Valley. You moved to the Bay Area to work at Facebook as a product lead for Spanish-speaking Latin America, Mexico, Colombia, Peru, Argentina. I have to think that's a job that a lot of people would want, but maybe for you, you were still healing, recovering, mixing this identity. From Carrot, what did it feel like to be in Silicon Valley, to be at Facebook, to be in this very different environment? And ultimately, why did you do it?
This has always been in my story. I'm super, super lucky. And I was lucky to get this role that it's a product manager, that it is based in Menlo Park, but it's also international. So I was able to live both worlds, from Menlo Park, but also Mexico, and travel all around in Latin America. After Carrot, I knew that I was not going to go into a conventional enterprise. So when I was looking and I found this position, I was mesmerized because it was one of the only product manager positions that will allow me to still be international. And it was amazing. I still believe that Meta is the best product company in the world. They invented the growth hacking, basically, terminology. I was so much into product, and Alex Schultz basically was my hero. So for me, it was inspiring to be part of the group of somebody that I had admired so much, and to have been able to meet him and work with him. That was amazing. Meta was a company that will pamper me, definitely. I was going to learn a lot, and it will allow me to still be in the tech ecosystem. And one of the key things that I learned is that even though we have the same products, how different each region is. Southeast Asia is so different from the US, but Southeast Asia is so similar to Latin America, for example. And you would have never thought that, right? And then in our own Latin America, there are some nuances too that are important. They're relevant. Like Argentinians do not behave the same way digitally as Mexicans. So even though we're this global world, there's so many similarities, but at the end, there's so many nuances. And building for the people that you are giving a solution is what matters.
I know you and I have had this discussion before about this deficit of product managers in LATAM. Really, it's a craft that, you learned it in the best place, bringing that knowledge home. It was a healing place to be. You were pampered, but it probably felt a little slow, and the entrepreneurial itch came back. I know you returned to Mexico in 2022 and you paid a visit to your longtime mentor, Federico. What happened next?
I was able to do so many fun things inside Meta. For example, we launched the dating app in Colombia, then we did the roll in Brazil, and that had a lot of impact. Then COVID came and everything slowed down because, of course, the priority was everything that was COVID products. And for us international PMs, the politics with the engineering teams, we were deprioritized. So I became more a PM without execution because I was only doing analysis. And suddenly that felt a little bit boring. So I started to look into new things. And I had a friend who was launching an office from a VC firm here in Mexico. And he was like, hey, you could do this job. VC is not that hard. You already know, you have fundraised before and you know all the ecosystem, you know all the VCs. And I was like, yeah, I guess I can do that. When I said I had to call Federico. By the way, Federico, who was previously my investor, our relationship had changed as a mentor and as a friend. And I would probably go and have lunch with him every 6 months or so. And when I told him like, hey, I got this option. I had this project into going into another big tech. The other thing is I have this opportunity to go into VC. And the other one is I can be an entrepreneur again. And Federico, who is actually very, very funny, he told me like, no, let's see. If you go into a big tech, you're just like kicking the can 6 months and you come with the same problem in 6 months. If you're doing VC, you have to do it with me. So go upstairs, because we actually had lunch in a restaurant that is below Meta's offices here in Mexico. Go upstairs, quit your job, and I'll see you on Monday at High Ventures office. And I was like, wow, this is like my godfather. Sometimes when you want to take a risk, you're always afraid that you will fall alone. And suddenly I had the opportunity in my mid-career to try to do whatever I wanted with a bit of backup, with somebody who said, yeah, I will push you forward. So for me, it was a no-brainer to take it. I came into a Monday, and on Friday it was like, you will be a VC with me. Federico and I, we have been working now for 15 years together. And the trust we have within each other, it's 100% trust. And I do think that even as a founder, as a VC, etc., when you found that sort of partnership of admiration, respect, and trust, and a true friendship, I mean, that makes the work so much easier.
I cannot emphasize that enough, how in this line of work, especially, how much easier, and actually really more than that, how necessary it is to be able to lean into your partners. You coming home to all VP, that was the thing that was supposed to happen. You did that in 2022. Shortly after that, that's actually where you and I first crossed paths in early 2023. New company for you, new identity for the firm, rebranding as High Ventures with a very clear thesis around AI and data for regional innovation. I've seen you explain a little bit the intentionality behind High, being friendly, ambitious, signaling a high bar. What did that rebrand mean to you and to Federico? How did you come about that, and what do you want it to signal to the world?
I came back home to what had been my entrepreneurial house that was all VP back then. And yeah, that's when I met you. And I guess I asked you for advice because I was also in that shift, right? Like from founder to investor, etc. And I remember you were generous enough to give me your book, The Startup Community Way. And I love that story from our friendship because it came out from a lot of humility, and you truly helped me into understanding how nascent Latin America was as a startup community and the role players each one should have. And I'm really thankful because when you're transitioning from one point to another, you need people to be nice to you and that have a lot of experience to actually give you this sort of advice. Like, hey, you're building something. You'll be a great investor because you've already been an entrepreneur. So keep on doing what you're doing, keep the empathy. And that was your message. So I'm truly thankful about that because people like you helped me become an investor.
Wow. I did not know that. Thank you for sharing that. I feel very flattered and glad that it worked out.
And it truly was a shift. I always thought that my operational experience was the one that was going to bring value to the portfolio companies. And then I realized that portfolio companies don't want their investors within. I thought I was going to spend days in the offices and, hey, let's see your marketing strategy and your pipeline. And they don't want to share that with investors. They don't want you in their offices. So for me, it was a mind switch in order from me wanting to be there and thinking I could add value there into adding value when they actually wanted it and when they actually needed it. And that was a huge learning. And after that, I remember speaking with Federico and telling him like, well, you know, I'm not a financial person. I'm a product person. And he was like, yeah, we're going to build the tech fund for Latin America. And I was all into that. So we took that decision and everything came together. I was with Federico at the GSB and we went to a class together just when ChatGPT had launched. When we came into that lecture, we both were like, this will change everything. I don't know how, but this will change every corner of every business. It will revolutionize this. So we came out and we were like, well, Fund 4, which we were actually fundraising, will be the AI fund for Latin America. So ever since, we've been obsessed in learning on AI and understanding the true value proposition to our region and to our specific needs and to our portfolio companies. And it truly has been the most exciting time of my life. I have never been as thrilled as I am today, and I have never worked harder. And the revamp came into it. We were called All VP, and at the end, we didn't invest in all. And then VP is, what is VP? Venture partners, but it sounds like vice president. It was not that memorable. So we wanted this fresh new look with a new partnership that will actually symbolize our partnership together. And that's why we came up with High. And High came as altitude too. We climb together mountains, and we do it not only figuratively, but also literally. We have done that with the team. We have done that in Santiago de Chile. We have done that in the US. So we wanted to reflect that high and also become more a technology company and not a legacy firm. And I guess we've been able to share that. We're both marketers too. So we craft everything together. And I think we have been able to share that spirit.
It's a great story. And something you touched on that I would like to explore a little deeper, which is you said that you thought your operating experience, your founding experience was going to help you be a better advisor, a better value add investor. But I think it also probably gives you a level of empathy and understanding to be more self-aware around when is the right time to engage. Those subtle nuances. I think we all have come up against investors that completely lack empathy and how they engage with founders. And you're having this level of self-awareness, which is, hey, maybe I should back off a little bit, or maybe they don't need me right now. Whereas maybe some other investors would not take that for an answer and be very heavy-handed. Do you agree with me that that founding experience has given you a level of empathy or maybe some other softer skills that unlock a special cheat code for you as a value add investor for your portfolio founders?
When you're an investor, it takes a long time to know if you're good or not good. And then if you're a good investor, you know that luck plays a great part on it. So you can be super bad investor and still have moonshots that have gone well. And you can be a great investor and have zero outcomes. So having that humility, I think the only thing you can do is be of help to the founders. Yes, we are all ambitious. And one of my big purpose, of course, is returning to my investors multiple times their money. But with founders, the only thing I can do is be nice to them. I see so many colleagues like take this for granted just because they have the big pockets. For me, it's the wrong way to approach it. And it's also the best way to enjoy it by being of help, by knowing that you were able to give them some advice, some motivation, some coaching, some hard lesson. And I'm not speaking about being their friend and always agreeing with them. No, I'm speaking like true value. And for me, at least these years, it's the only thing that I have as a validation and as a North Star as I'm doing well. And I want to continue doing that for the rest of my VC career because it's also the easiest way to enjoy it.
As investors, we control very little except our own actions. Brad Feld, as you know, is a mentor of mine. He was on this podcast a few episodes ago. He wrote a book called Startup Boards, which is really written for founders about how to have an effective engagement with your board members. I think board members can read it as well. But his main point is your job as a board member is to support the CEO and to find ways to be supportive. And it's nothing more than that. So couldn't agree with you more. Maybe last question on High Ventures and really kind of tying together where we began. One of the things that I think about as the region evolves and matures is local. So in the case of Mexico, a large ecosystem for the Latin American region. A lot of founders from smaller countries will move to Mexico to go to market, scale their companies. Traditionally, scaling regionally has been the focus. But of course, as the ecosystem matures, those companies will begin to be global. And so I'd love to get your take on companies starting out today, especially in the era of AI. Is it enough to say we are the X for Mexico or the X for Spanish-speaking Latin America? And maybe even those that go one step further, which is we're the X for Spanish speaking Latin America, and we're going to move into the United States one day after Series B or C or whatever? Or do you think companies today can and should and increasingly will be global focused from the beginning?
This is an amazing question because I have changed my thought on this. I always thought that the advantage from a Latin American founder was to build a solution for Latin America, and that LATAM is a big enough market, which it is. But today, in the post-ChatGPT era, my mindset has changed into Latin American founders building global since day one. And if you look into our current portfolio, it's basically divided in two. One is these founders that are solving the hard problems of developing Latin America in the region with the networks and the contact, and of course, building them super lean, super fast, super efficient with AI. And in the other hand, we have the founders that we give them a check and they move immediately to the Bay Area, and they are not a day behind as their peers from the US, from India, from Canada, Ukraine, Argentina. They're all in the same set. And this is the beauty about AI. AI launched in Latin America that was already digitalized and with a lot of tech talent. So the CFO from a Latin American company and the CFO from a US company, they all started to use ChatGPT and Cursor the same day. So AI brought Latin America in a same standard that with the internet, we did not have that same conditions. With mobile, we did not have the same conditions. But with AI, we're finally in the same time, at the same moment. So it makes sense for talent to go into launch global. One of the most beautiful examples is Atlas. These are two founders, female founders, tech female founders. You know how hard that is to find in Latin America? Of course, we found it in a remote place, which is the Argentinian Patagonia. And they are now headquartered in San Francisco. Karen is the next Mark Zuckerberg. Her platform, it's for benefits for remote employees, is live in more than 60 countries today. And she serves American clients, Mexican clients, French clients. The other one, it's Faces.app, that it's basically a vibe coding Notion. You'll be able to publish something beautiful with a 2-minute prompt. I spent the summer with them in the Bay Area, and you see what other AIs are building in San Francisco, which is the Mecca, and these Chilean engineers are not a day behind on what the others are doing. So it's like, yeah, believe it, Latin American can build global and can build from the Mecca of technology. And that is exciting to see. And that's something that thrills me, to be able to see that glass ceiling has been completely broken for the whole world.
You hinted at one glass ceiling, which still needs to be cracked a little bit, is female founders. Tech is male-dominated industry. I know we're looking back to 13 years plus. You were a female founder. I can't imagine there were too many people who looked like you in the engineering department at your university, building startups. I know you've also talked about it not being necessarily this handicap for you, that there were advantages and maybe some disadvantages, but really how you've kind of seen your role as being an example to show other women that they can also be tech entrepreneurs. Really, that's what this entire show is all about, is encouraging, inspiring outsiders that if they don't look like the prototypical Silicon Valley tech entrepreneur, if they come from the wrong geography or the wrong background or whatever, there's actually a lot of people who have come from similar backgrounds and have done great things. And I think that's part of you as a symbol. And so to your comment about, you said there's still not that many technical founders who are women in the region. What do you think is still holding that back? Do you think things have improved in the last nearly decade and a half since you were a founder? What do you want to see happen?
Although it has improved, very slowly. And sometimes I feel that we give 3 steps forward and then 2 back. One thing that has played me well is partnering with people that actually go forward into supporting female talent. Federico is more a feminist than I am. In my entrepreneurial years, it did play a good exposure look, because imagine this, if we had an event with the president, who will you sit next to the president? Well, the only female founder, so Jimena, you'll be next to the president and you'll ask the question to the president. So it gave me a lot of exposure. Nevertheless, that it's not the usual. And also, I have always had male partners. In venture capital, even though you should think it's less aggressive for female, it's more. The financial world, it's even more male driven than the tech world. What I love is that I got this Doberman, which is Federico, behind me. So whenever we're fundraising together and he will be like, hey, that answer will be taken by Jimena, who's my co-managing partner, and you should be looking at her. So one, you need people that will give you your place and that step forward for you, that actually bridge that gap. So I guess what I want to ask from your audience is go and find the outsider, make them feel at home so they can build a different thing that will be the alpha, that will be the multiplier, that will be the asteroid on whatever you're doing. Because you'll build more diverse, you will bring a wider vision, you will bring another point of view, you will bring another idea. So go and look for the outlier and step up to him to make them home.
I love that. Last big question for you then. I know it's your mission for Latin America to be the greatest version of itself, for using innovation to solve some of the region's biggest challenges, but really it's about being a launchpad to solving global challenges, to building name brand companies worldwide. If you fast forward a few decades from now, what do you want to see for the region in terms of tech, in terms of entrepreneurship, innovation? What do you want to be true that maybe seemed impossible when you were first starting out with Carrot?
The best fintech in the world is Latin American, and that's Nubank. I want to see the best e-commerce. I want to see the best health tech. I want to see the best prop tech. And I want every founder in Latin America to have the opportunity to build as in the US. I want them to have the resources so they won't be limited by capital for testing their products. And whenever we do that, the next e-commerce, the next health tech, the next prop tech, the next ed tech will come not specifically from Latin America, but also from Southeast Asia, from Africa, from all around the world. So I want to break the capital barrier to our regions.
I want that too. I want you to fulfill your mission. I want to be a part of that reality becoming true as well. So look, we're almost out of time. But here on Outsider Inc., we like to finish with a little segment we call Beyond the Bio, which is just a couple of quick questions that let us go beyond your resume and dig into you as a person.
Shoot.
Okay. What is a quick piece of advice from a mentor that has stuck with you throughout your journey?
To be successful, you have to do the hard things. There's no shortcut.
Definitely not. Who is an unsung hero in your life, and what has been the impact they've had on you?
I would say Federico. Federico has worked with me in my entrepreneurial and investor life. And I do believe he's the best VC in Latin America. And it's been an honor to build with him not only Carrot and now High VC, but also my professional life and me as a person.
Who is someone in the local startup community or in your broader network who does not get enough credit and deserves a shout out from you?
Andrea Campos from Jana. Jana is that mental journey app that I invite you to download since it's live in the US. She's a girl from Cancun, university dropout that learned how to code in order to help her with her depression. And she has helped 15 million people by building Jana. And she should be helping 100 million. So go and get your checks and send it to her.
Tell us something most people don't know about you. Something outside of work. Could be a hobby, a favorite travel spot, a guilty pleasure, or maybe a hidden talent.
Yes, I'm a huge basketball fan.
And why is your favorite team the Lakers? That's the only option.
I'll skip that.
Well, we could talk about that sometime. We both have a love of basketball. What are one or two songs you would like to add to our Spotify Founders playlist? Something that you use to fuel your workday or maybe has inspired you on your journey as an entrepreneur?
Whenever I need motivation, I'm a huge fan of Eddie Vedder. So Rise Up from Eddie Vedder. And that will be in my soft side. And then when I need my energy up, it's definitely Unstoppable from Sia.
Okay, last question. If you could give one piece of advice to someone who's about to start their first company today, particularly someone who's a bit of an outsider, what would it be?
Start. Do not compare yourself to others. Just start. I always thought that I needed the certifications in order to be able to build something, etc. You don't need anything, just to start. And whatever makes you unique is a superpower.
Yeah. I can't think of a better way to end. Jimena, thank you so much for joining me today. I had a great time catching up with you.
I have one more thing to say. For those founders and investors coming to Mexico, there's a tech ecosystem here that it's already built, and we also have great gastronomy, and we have a great nightlife, and we have beautiful streets. So come into Mexico and just meet people, and I'll be happy to help you plan this adventure trip and also working trip.
Yeah, I have a very unnatural love of Mexico City. As you know, Jimena, it is a truly world-class gem. I encourage anyone listening to go check it out. So thank you again, Jimena. So great to have you here and great to see you again.
It was amazing, Ian. I'm truly honored.
That's a wrap for today's episode of Outsider Inc. A big thank you to Jimena Pardo for sharing her wisdom and journey, one defined by exploration, ambition, and constant reinvention across every seat in the startup world. What struck me most is her humility and ability to stay grounded in who she is. From pioneering Mexico's startup scene, to building inside big tech, to backing the next wave of Latin American founders, her journey is a reminder that great ecosystems are built by people willing to take risks, help others, and open doors for the next generation. I left this conversation inspired by her conviction that Latin America can build not just regional champions, but name brand global tech giants. If you want more from Outsider Inc., don't forget to subscribe to the platform at outsider-inc.substack.com. It's packed with highlights from today's episode and bonus insights you won't want to miss. You can follow Outsider Inc. on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn at Outsider Inc. Pod. You can also follow me on X at Ian Hathaway. Outsider Inc. is produced by Spellbinder Media. We'll be back soon with another fascinating outsider conversation. Until then, thank you so much for listening, and remember, great entrepreneurs can come from anywhere. See you next time.